My daughter cut me off after our divorce without hearing my side of the story. Now, 8 years later, she's reaching out for her inheritance. I laughed and asked her to unblock me so she could see the message I sent her. I, a 54-year-old male, got divorced from my wife, a 48-year-old female, 8 years ago. My daughter, now 28 and female, cut all contact with me and chose her mother's side without even asking me how I felt. Even though my divorce was nearly a decade ago, it has taken a lot of time for me to accept how things turned out and make peace with my life. This has been partly because my ex-wife tried to completely destroy my reputation, but mostly because I really love my daughter, and being completely shut out from her life was harder than anything. As she was an adult at the time, there was no way for me to be in her life unless she wanted me to be, and she seemed sure of her decision to pick her mother over me. I don't have any family of my own except my mom, who had Alzheimer's, so the whole ordeal was definitely one of the worst things that has ever happened to me. I tried to contact my daughter several times after the divorce, but she was dead set on being on her mom's side and didn't even try to hear my side of the story. At one point, my ex reached out to me and sued me for harassment if I didn't leave my daughter alone. That spelled things out for me, and I stopped contacting her. I spent the last 8 years taking care of my mom and focusing on my career. I've had a few casual relationships here and there, but I feel like I can't truly trust another person after my divorce. Anyway, that has been my life for nearly a decade. Sorry if I seem like a downer. The reason I'm writing this post is that my daughter recently reached out to me after all this time. I was over the moon and thought that she had finally come to her senses and understood that the divorce was not just my fault. It was also comforting, particularly because my mother recently passed away, and I've been dealing with that grief by myself and was craving some comfort and family. So, my daughter reached out to me a few months after my mother passed away. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, and I picked up to hear a woman's voice on the other side. I didn't know it was my daughter and didn't even recognize her voice because it had been that long since we spoke. I was quite shocked when she introduced herself. She said that she saw on Facebook that her grandma passed away and wanted to check up on me. I was taken aback. I didn't even know that she kept tabs on me online and thought that was sweet of her. I thanked her for calling and said that I was doing all right and told her that I missed her. We talked for a bit, and she said that if I wanted to meet and actually catch up in person instead of on the phone, she would like that. I was extremely happy and agreed immediately. We agreed to meet at my house over the weekend. I was really excited about meeting her after all these years, so I am writing this post to share my excitement with anyone who might be reading. I hope we can rebuild our relationship again or at least get to know each other. My daughter came over to have dinner with me because I wanted to cook for her. I was nervous and excited when I first opened the door. I absolutely didn't recognize her because it's been nearly a decade since I last saw her, and she was just a little girl back then. We started talking, and even though it was a little awkward at first, I think we both opened up after a while. She told me about her life and what she does for work, and I told her about my life. After dinner, we finally acknowledged the elephant in the room. I asked her why she never bothered to listen to my side of the story during the divorce and chose her mom by default. I admitted that her mother was more present as a parent because she was a stay-at-home mom and back then I worked in construction and worked long hours, but I always tried my best to take out as much time as I possibly could for my daughter. My daughter then said that she regrets how things turned out and that she was too young to think things through and got manipulated by how her mom made things sound. Basically, my ex-wife painted me as the ultimate bad guy who didn't care about anyone except himself, and since she never got to hear my side of the story, she never questioned whatever her mom said. We talked a bit more about this, and things were going well until she finally revealed why she was there. We had been talking for hours at that point when I asked her what made her reach out to me after all these years. She looked a little uncomfortable, and I told her that she could be honest with me. Well, then she said that she really had been keeping tabs on me through Facebook, and when she found out that her grandmother had died, she thought lawyers would contact her about her inheritance. When no one did, she thought she should reach out to me personally. She said that she wanted to give me some time and space to grieve, but she had recently gotten engaged and could really use some money to help out with the wedding expenses. I felt like I was getting punched in the gut. Honestly, I thought that after all these years, my prayers were answered, and I could have a family again. But it turns out she never cared for me in the first place, and all this was a way for her to get her inheritance. The funniest thing is that it's not even her inheritance legally, it's all mine. If only she hadn't been such a terrible daughter to me, she would definitely end up with most, if not all, of it. I don't care about money. I never have. Honestly, I live in a house of my own, don't have any expensive hobbies, and mostly buy my clothes from Target. Even if the inheritance wasn't in question in the first place, I wouldn't have minded helping out with her wedding at all if she had reached out nicely instead of trying to take advantage of me and only caring about the inheritance. All of this was going through my head at the same time I somehow maintained my composure and asked her if that was all she wanted. She got very defensive and said that the inheritance came second and her actual goal was to connect with me. She would never forgive herself for not reaching out while her grandmother was alive. She said that she had wanted to reach out for years but never got the courage to actually do it because she thought I would never forgive her for kicking me out without an explanation, and that she was also manipulated by her mom. But I could see from the panicked look on her face that she was just trying to smooth things out so I could forgive her, and I wondered if she was just after the money. I asked her how she knew she had an inheritance, and she said that a couple of years before the divorce, she was visiting my late mother, and my mother told her that she wanted her to inherit everything left by my father, who passed away years ago, as she was the only grandchild in the family. I don't have any siblings, and at that point, my marriage was fine. So I understand why my mother might have said that to my daughter. I mean, if the divorce had never happened or if my daughter hadn't abandoned me for years after the divorce, the money would have been hers, as I've already mentioned. But the thought of her only caring about the money and giving me false hopes was absolutely crushing. I was devastated but did my best not to let her know. At that moment, I thought the only way to test my daughter's intentions would be to see how she would react if I told her there was no money to inherit. I asked her how much she expected from the inheritance, and she made quite a decent guess. I could tell that some planning had gone into this whole thing. I then told her that I was sorry to disappoint her, but her grandmother actually left everything to me years ago, and I planned on using that money to start a business, so I couldn't help her out. I offered to contribute to her wedding with my own money by offering a few grand for wedding expenses. The disappointment on her face proved my worst fears. She said that she appreciated my offer, but as the only grandchild, she deserved at least some of the inheritance because it was her grandma's money that she was offered. I told her that I wished I could help her, but my decision was final, and there was nothing I could do for her. If she wasn't happy with the money I was offering, she went completely red in the face and started getting visibly angry. She told me again to reconsider my decision, but I reiterated that I was going to stick to what seemed right to me. That's when she showed her true colors and said something that confirmed all my doubts regarding her true intentions. She told me that she should have known that I would always be the selfish a-hole her mother said I was, and she was glad I was alone in life. I looked at her with barely concealed disgust. Her words were hurtful, but at that point, I knew what to expect. I just didn't expect her to get that brutally honest that fast. That's all. She started to say something else, but I stopped her before she could speak. I told her that I should have known she was her mother's daughter and that the only reason she would reach out to anyone was to ask for a favor. I also told her that using the fact that I was grieving for my mother to try and manipulate me was disgusting, even for a person like her. She tried to say something at that point, but I just laughed in her face and said that if only she had not blocked me all those years ago, she would have gotten my text about her grandmother and would have probably received most, if not all, of the inheritance. That sentence had the effect I wanted. She looked utterly baffled and asked me what I meant. I told her to unblock me on her old number so I could resend her all the texts that could never get delivered. Well, she did. I forwarded all the texts where I begged her to hear me out and even let her know that her grandmother was diagnosed